It's not that I don't like dogs, I just prefer cats. I like their independence and how they can amuse themselves with inanimate objects that they pretend are like prey. And I had a cat once that was a fabulous hunter. You know, he could catch birds. I felt bad for the birds, actually, because he just went through birds and he would play with them and toy with them and ruffle them. And he wouldn't kill them. He wouldn't eat them. He just played with them. One time he was playing with this one bird. It's all disheveled and out of sorts. Wings are everywhere. And he hears a noise and he looks over and it flies away. And that's what I was thinking about during the second half of the Villa-Fulham game on Tuesday. These are the things I think about. Thankfully, the Cottagers did not play dead, only to revive and then fly away with a point. Let's review. Aston Villa 1, Fulham 0. Unai Emery has been in charge of Aston Villa for 20 games, and Aston Villa has scored in each one of those games. That's never been done before in the Premier League. And now Aston Villa has won 5 straight home games. That hasn't happened since 1997, 1998, when Barbie Girl was topping the charts. Ironically, a song that came on at O'Neill's on Broad Street after the Forest win, which Chris Woodsy from the CyberQ group, if you need cybersecurity, took us to, because he knows everybody in town. He's like the mayor. We're going in there. He's bumping out to Barbie Girl. I'm curious. I noticed this on my trip. Clubs, bars, and restaurants are allowed to play music that's from post-2000, aren't they? Because it was hard to tell. Here's a lovely shot of Villa Park and the line out from Adam Patel, the journo from Mail Sports, sitting in the Trinity. And we call this the Holy Trinity Show. You know, this is the 3 key issues or moments that defined Aston Villa 1, Fulham 0. We'll start with the key statistics, and I decided on this occasion to choose blocked shots because it seemed like there were a lot when I was watching, and that proved to be true. XG, non-existent for either side. Look at that on Fulham's end. 1 shot, none on target. That came 19 seconds in. And Villa had 7 shots blocked. Is that good defending, or is that poor shooting? I'm still trying to work it out. Just before I get into the match, there was a lot made this week about the proposed hike in season ticket prices at Aston Villa, something that's difficult for me to comment on from across the Atlantic because I will never have the luxury of owning Aston Villa season tickets. But a lot of very good and passionate fans will be priced out of their seats because of this proposed hike at times of economic uncertainty, which optically is not great. What else isn't great optically is the fact that on a Tuesday night with 25,000 apparent waiting list members, Villa couldn't sell out the ground against Fulham. And this time, I'm not willing to put the blame on this issue at the feet of the CEO. The reason why Aston Villa has to increase capacity by 7,000 and possibly more, leveraging the proposed European Championships in the UK to do so, the reason why they need to get into Europe and get more games, more revenue, more TV exposure, and more TV money is because of Manchester City and the City Group, and people like Todd Boehly, the richest of the rich, the filthy rich who love their bright, shiny things and spending, and probably even circumventing the rules to do so. Isn't it interesting how football kind of mirrors society? And in this case, it is the richest, smallest percentage of people who are ruining it for everybody else. Talk about arrogance and entitlement. The Citigroup is being charged with over 100 alleged breaches of financial fair play laws. You talk about the greedy fat pigs wanting more shiny things and thinking that they're above the laws or that they can circumvent the rules with sneaky little tricks and lie about them. Does that sound familiar in society, by the way? Uber rich elites, a tiny percentage of people who think they're above the law and can break the rules so they can get richer while the rest of us stiffs hold the bag? Well, that's what's happening here, and the Premier League is in an awkward position because they need their marquee team. They want the eyeballs on this league, and they want the best players in the world coming to this league, and the most likely destination is Manchester City. So you know what they need to do? They need to find the living out of the City Group. I'm talking about billions with a B of dollars, billions of dollars. And you know the City Group will pay it just to save themselves of the shame of having to put an asterisk next to every single shiny trophy they've won over the last few years while they were breaking the rules. And you know what you do with those billions of dollars? You give it to those who were cheated. And that's the other Premier League clubs who have been playing by the rules. And if they do that, maybe there's a way for those clubs to somehow use that money and offer rebates or at least lower season ticket prices. Possible key issue? Is Ollie Watkins getting up at 2 a.m. to change nappies? I'm not saying he played poorly, and he's played a lot of football, and he's been excellent up until the last couple of games, but you know, I wonder if baby number 2 is starting to affect his deep sleep. If you're a parent, you know. Now, if I was coaching Aston Villa in the first half, these would be my instructions. Give it to Moreno. 13 million. I saw some folks complaining about the atmosphere at Villa Park on Tuesday night on social media, and I'm surprised that with a Spanish coach who loves control of the game, which we are clearly delivering, by the way, I'm surprised that the Villa Park faithful doesn't belt out the Olays as we are methodically playing the ball from one side of the park to the other with a systematic build-up, even just to amuse themselves. We are, after all, Aston Villa. Major conundrum for me. Do I absolutely eviscerate Emi Buendia for having another shocker of a game where he was the lowest rated player out of 22 on the field for the second game in a row? Or do I risk having the Buendia apologists who think he's going to be a starter for the Argentine national team and somehow be the next Messi come after me again? He had 16 ground duels in this game. He lost 13 of them. He was dispossessed 5 times. How many times in this game, again, did he get bullied off the ball and lose possession? The one that really bothered me was late in the game. He had Bertrand Traore wide open. He could have just played that pass early. Instead, he's pushed off the ball. Again, his hands are in the air as if he's blaming everybody else for not moving the ball quickly enough. Worse still, though, was his body language in another moment with Ollie Watkins. He wasn't connected enough to Ollie Watkins, who's trying to play a headed ball back to him. Obviously, he doesn't connect. And Buendia is having a go at him. This is the sign of a player who is so frustrated because he can't complete a pass. He can't make anything happen. He loses the ball time and time again. He's not physically strong enough to play in the midfield. And I'm starting to get the hump. Here's my philosophy. Don't fall in love with footballers. You could fall in love with the human, that's fine, but don't fall in love with the footballer because form changes and you then end up making excuses for them when their form dips. How do we know what Aston Villa could look like with a physically dominant and precise number 10 type who might help us actually smash teams by winning more duels, making the correct pass, driving the box at the right time, having good finish? We don't know because we're too busy defending the players that we're in love with. Every player on the squad needs to have an adversary in their position. It's dog eat dog, battle it out, competition. We don't have that right now, and despite that, we're still winning, which is insane. Big issue number 3, inopportune injuries. We're talking about Fulham now. Compared with their performance at the Cottage in October against us, Steven Gerrard's merciful last game, Fulham were flat on Tuesday, and Aston Villa does get some of the credit for that. But it did not help their cause that Mitrovic was still suspended and that Willian had to be withdrawn after the pre-game warm-ups with a hamstring problem. Then 17 minutes in, Harry Wilson had to be dragged. You know, this is a team that won 2 games in a row against not the best opponents, but they would have had their squad together. They would have been working on their shape leading up to Villa, and then boom, before the game, and then 17 minutes into the game, they have two pretty key players come out, and we saw what happened when Emi Martinez came off at halftime at Brentford. Villa looked unsettled. And that's how Fulham kind of looked in that first half. Now, it wasn't the reason why Aston Villa won the game, but it certainly did not hurt our cause. Big issue or moment number 2, complete control. I showed you the stats earlier. Fulham had 1 attempt on target. It occurred in the 19th second, and they didn't even hit the target. They did not have 1 attempt on goal, forcing Emi Martinez into any kind of save. Their expected goals was 0.10, which means they did not have the ball once in a dangerous area of the penalty area. Now, how much of that was down to Fulham not being at their very best and certainly missing some key players versus Aston Villa completely controlling the game with this new system of theirs? The confidence is oozing out of the men in claret and blue. They know what to do with the ball. They know what to do without the ball. And there's this old adage in football that I completely agree with, and I say it to my young players all the time. You rest in possession. When you have the ball, you're not being stressed. It's the team without the ball that has to do the pressing, the chasing, the harrying to try to get it back. They have to shift from side to side as you move them around while you're methodically working the ball to where you want it to go before you either play it through or around or over. So while in possession, Aston Villa is not really exerting themselves. And that's important, not just in the context of the game, but in the context of a week where we already played a really taxing game on Saturday where we were under it and had to come from behind late to earn a point, and where we have another big game on Sunday at Old Trafford against a team where if we get some points, we stay kind of connected in those places up there. So the fact that we managed to control this game so well and not exert ourselves, because I don't have access to all the really high-end data, the heat maps, the power sprints, the exertion type stuff, the load, but I'm willing to bet that the load for the game against Fulham would have been significantly less than, say, the home game to Newcastle or even the game at Brentford. And that's exactly what we needed to have happen when you consider that we have a razor-thin squad. Probably the exact same starting lineup is going to be put out again on Sunday at United. This could not have gone any better. We brought this game to a standstill a couple of times, and that's exactly what we needed in a very taxing week. And I know there were many thinking and saying on social media, well, we got to improve our goal difference. We should be putting this game to bed. We got to go for it. This is not a very good Fulham team, but the reality is the Premier League is so grueling, so punishing, so demanding mentally, physically. We have to be realistic here, and by playing the way that Aston Villa has played, and with a squad that is threadbare, we have still managed to leave some gas in the tank for Sunday. And the number 1 big issue or moment that defined Aston Villa 1, Fulham 0, monstrous Mings. I've pontificated on this program previously about which Aston Villa player has benefited the most from Unai Emery's tutelage. You can make a very strong case for Ollie Watkins. The same can be said for John McGinn, but I'm now heavily leaning towards Tyrone Mings. What a performance for the big Villa rearguard. He is so confident on the ball. He is so dominant in the air. He is a leader. He is an organizer. And together with Ezri Konsa, one of the most underrated duos at Villa Park, since these two chaps, this is Mike Blakeney and Glenn Williams, two best mates, huge Villa fans, and fans of this show, which I always find so flattering. Thanks for watching, chaps. There was a gorgeous example of how well Tyrone Mings is defending right now 1v1. It came in the 38th or 39th minute, and so many important principles of defending are illustrated in this one moment because Dan James is sent down the left flank into what appeared to be acres of space. And the first principle of defending is delay. Slow that player down by closing the space. And even though he's a big guy, Tyrone Mings is deceptively mobile, but he stays low. He keeps his feet moving. He keeps dancing, basically, and he just shepherds James to where he wants him to go, and he does not dive in. Patience is one of the most important aspects of defending. What are you supposed to do if you're the attacker there? Tyrone Mings is playing lights out right now, but there is one aspect of his game that has been missing. For a guy his size, he really should be scoring more. And so on this corner, which was after a succession of corners, great ball in by John McGinn, give the assist to Tyrone Mings, Barber, because the little fresh shaving here and there probably helped this on. I was half expecting Emi Buendia to clear this off the line, quite frankly. But we need more goals from set pieces from Tyrone Mings, given his stature. And what a thing of beauty it was. The game-winning goal, and his first for Villa since Steven Gerrard's first game in charge, if you can believe it, against Brighton. And not only the goal, but you know what else he's been doing a lot lately? He's becoming more confident and certainly more accurate in his long-range passing, because we've seen a few beautiful balls pinged either diagonally or long that have been knocked on a dime, frankly. Time to tally up the points. I borrowed this photo from Mafu1980 on Twitter as he took a shot of, some of the Fulham fans. Where were they all? By the way, speaking of clubs that have added seats and inventory to their ground and then jacked up the ticket prices, well, that's Fulham. So at Villa Park, Villa now 32 of a possible 51 points. Hey, we scored a set-piece goal from a corner up to -5 on the season, and Emi Martinez now has 11 clean sheets. Could he still catch Brad Friedel? He'd have to run the table. Next up, Red Devils at Old Trafford. And I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to Manchester United because I hate them. But boy, do they have a lot of fixture backup right now, thanks to the Europa League, the FA Cup. They have an incredible list of injuries. You thought Villa had a lot of injuries? Oh, Martinez, Garnacho, Varane, Van de Beek. Bruno Fernandes was shown in a boot on social media. Marcus Rashford is just coming back. There's a couple of other fringy guys as well. Do I dare bust out the double talk? Can Unai Emery do the double? His first game in charge, a 3-1 win. You know, they had a good performance, I thought, at least in the first half there during the Cup. Had the lead twice, but that was the early Unai Emery times before his systems were fully implemented. Can we expect a late Courtney Hawes-like surprise game winner? Who knows? But I'm not going into that game on Sunday with the same sense of nausea as I usually do with that fixture. And I'm spent. This run of fixtures is challenging me. Honestly, I'm exhausted, but I'm not going to whinge because I will never, ever take for granted the precious, gorgeous 3 points, no matter how they come. I don't know if you're like me, but I just sat and stared at the table for about 20 minutes today, just looking at it. Villa, fifth, Villa. It's unbelievable. Until next time, until Sunday, be well, savor another clean sheet. I mean, this is just becoming old hat. 5 consecutive clean sheets at home. Be well and up the mighty Villa.